I know you must be anxiously and eagerly waiting for election results that will come on the 10th of March, and I'm in no position to give you any clue about that. What I'm going to talk about in this episode of Politically Correct is how between Yogi Adityanath and Akhilesh Yadav, one of them will make history no matter who wins on Thursday. But before I come to that point, let me talk about some developments in other parts of the country over the past fortnight to see how the BJP has been doing vis-a-vis regional parties. There was bad news coming from the BJP for the BJP from West Bengal. It suffered a rout in Bengal civic polls. Last week, the Trinamool Congress won 102 out of 108 municipalities. The BJP drew a blank. That was last week. And last month, the Trinamool won all 4 municipal corporations that went to vote. In fact, the left's vote share was more than the BJP's. For the BJP, which secured 38% votes in the assembly elections last year, it has been quite a downslide in West Bengal. Then in Odisha, where the BJP once threw down the gauntlet to Naveen Patnaik, it registered a decline in rural polls, with the ruling BJD forming Jila Parishads in all districts. 5 years back, the BJP had formed 8 Jila Parishads with 297 seats. This time, it was down to 42 seats. Again, a downslide in Odisha too. In Tamil Nadu urban body polls, the BJP contested these polls alone and finally managed about 5.4% vote share, with 300 seats out of around 5,600 seats that it contested, winning 300 out of around total 13,000 seats in corporations, municipalities, and town panchayats. Might be an encouraging sign, but wasn't something to boast of, because you heard, the state BJP president Annamalai talking about how the party was going to make the lotus bloom in every nook and corner of Tamil Nadu. He was a bit boastful, but fine. He was happy because the BJP went alone in the polls and got over 5% votes and 308 seats. So that was encouraging, but not something you would go to town about. Given the fact that, the 65% of the seats the BJP won, about 199 out of 300, were in one district, Kanyakumari. The party could not open its account in 10 of the remaining 37 districts. But anyway, Tamil Nadu is not as disheartening as Odisha or West Bengal, because in Odisha and West Bengal the BJP was really, the BJP's fortune appeared to be on the surge, and the way it has been declining over the past few months. So these results in these civic polls in West Bengal, Odisha, and Tamil Nadu aren't really good signs for the BJP, especially given its failure to dislodge the incumbents in these states since 2019. Now there is a big question mark on its ability to outmatch powerful regional players. To be politically correct, the Trinamool Congress leaders would be upset if I were to call it a state party, a regional party. Technically, it's a national party, in fact. But anyway, so Akhilesh Yadav's shot at history making is what I'm going to talk about. It is in this backdrop that we are talking about the UP election today, where the BJP is pitted against the Samajwadi Party. Since its inception in 1980, the BJP on its own, and please mind it, I emphasize, the BJP on its own hasn't been able to dislodge any regional party from power in an assembly election, except the Samajwadi Party in UP in 2017. And I'm saying has not been able to dislodge in an assembly election. After that, post-elections, so many things are done. So I'm just talking about dislodging a regional party-led government in an election. Since 1980, the BJP has been able to do it only in UP, that too in 2017. But what is more pertinent in the context of the current election in UP is the fact that no regional party on its own has ever been able to unseat a BJP government. no regional party has been able to unseat a BJP government to repeat. Technically, Akhilesh Yadav is not alone in this election, nor is the BJP contesting on its own. But for all practical purposes, it's a Yogi versus Yadav contest, with the SP contesting around 345 of the 403 seats in UP. Therefore, if the SP gets to the majority mark in UP Assembly on the 10th of March and replaces the BJP government, it would be a first for a regional outfit in India. And that's what I call Akhilesh Yadav's likely shot at history making. Lest BSP leaders take umbrage, yes, Mahavatis may also have a shot at history making. I'm for the same, howsoever. Reasons for this interesting electoral record of the BJP and regional parties are not within the scope of this episode of Politically Correct. Broadly, it's because, the Congress was their common political adversary for a long time, and they often collaborated against it. BJP allying with different regional parties to beat the Congress in different states. So that's the history. Say in a state like UP, where the Congress ceased to be a major player from the 1990s onwards, the BJP grappled with regional players. But there was no decisive win or loss for either side till 2017. Neither Mulayam Singh Yadav nor Mahavatis could ever defeat the BJP on their own. Remember the 1993 poll slogan? Mile Mulayam, Kashi Ram, Hawa mein ud gaya Jai Shri Ram. Even then, the SP and the BSP had contested the election together. But together they remained one short of the BJP's tally. BJP had got 177 and these two parties got just about 176. So when we are talking about the BJP grappling with regional parties in UP, you do not have any decisive verdict in favor of the one or the other until 2017. And we are talking in the context, I'm repeating it because there may be some confusion, that when we are talking about BJP versus the regional parties, I'm talking about the two sides contesting on their own. So BJP having a one-on-one kind of fight with the Samajwadi Party or the BSP or any other party in the country. So when I'm saying that BJP has not been able to defeat any regional party on its own, except the SP since 1980, I'm talking about BJP on its own. And again, when I say that BJP and no regional party has been defeat the BJP on its own, I'm not talking about any alliances. And as I explain later, I'm taking it as a case that I'm treating this current UP election as BJP versus Akhilesh Yadav for all practical purposes, despite the alliances that the two parties have. So coming back to the fact that this is the kind of electoral record about the BJP and the regional parties. We are talking about the possible regions, broad regions. I have told you how the Congress was the principal enemy of the BJP and the regional parties all this while. Besides, in many states, the BJP strategically allied with regional outfits for consolidation and expansion, obviously at the latter's context, eventually. Then there were states in the south, including Karnataka until I would say the 1990s, and the northeast, where the BJP was hardly a factor until Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah embarked on an expansionist agenda. To spread the BJP's footprints all over the country. As for the regional parties, in fact, they were complacent until Amit Shah started turning the heat on them as part of his expansion drive. And that's how you see this keen contest between regional parties and the BJP in one state after the another. Now let's come to Yogi Adityanath's shot at history making. If Yogi leads his party to victory on the 10th of March and retains the CM's chair, he too will have his shot at history making. No CM of UP has completed a full 5-year term in office and got a consecutive second term. There have been CMs who have got a renewed mandate, but that was after shorter stints in office. Somebody has spent 2 years, 3 years in office and got a renewed mandate, but never has it been the case that a CM has completed 5 years and retained power. In 2012, Mahavatis became the first Chief Minister of UP to complete a full term in office, by the way. And since the first election in 1952, No CM before Mahavatis completed a full term in office. Just to explain, between 1952 and 2012, or 2007 rather, when Mahavatis came, there were 29 chief ministers. I'm counting their multiple terms separately. So if Mahavatis was chief minister for 4 terms, I'm counting it as 4 CMs. So when I'm counting 29 CMs before Mahavatis, this includes multiple CMs. So there were 29 CMs and none of them got a full term in office. Not one of them could serve out the full term. So after Mahavatis was the first, then Akhilesh Yadav became the second to complete full term, and then Yogi Adityanath. So that's the background. And if I don't include the multiple terms, I just include them as Mahavatis. So if I count, say, 4 terms of Mahavatis as 1 CM's term, then there have been 21 chief ministers in UP. So out of 21 UP CMs, only 4 have served for more than 5 years in office, if you put all their stints together. So let me count it out to you. Mahavatis, 7 years and 16 days. We talked about 4 terms. Mulayam Singh Yadav, 6 years, 274 days, 3 terms. Sampurnanand, the second chief minister of UP, 5 years, 344 days. He also had 2 terms. And Akhilesh Yadav, 5 years, 4 days in 1 term. Adityanath will complete 5 years in office on the 19th of March. So between Yogi and Yadav, whoever wins on the 10th of March will have the opportunity to break Mahavatis' record as the longest serving UP CM. See, as I mentioned, she served for more than 7 years. And either Yogi or Akhilesh Yadav will have this opportunity if the BJP doesn't spring a surprise on us on the 10th of March, obviously. Now let's come to the impact of this history making by Yogi or Akhilesh Yadav. While Amit Shah is seen as PM Modi's putative successor, there has been a lot of speculation about Adityanath entering the race if he gets a second term in office. The UP CM hasn't said anything about his national ambition yet, to be fair to him. But BJP leaders are playing it very safe. You talk to them, nobody wants to talk about the succession plan or anything, or who will emerge as a possible successor in future. That's a separate thing. But talking about Yogi's ambition, he might not have talked about it. He might not have hinted about it. But I would really like to add here that the fact that Yogi government's newspaper advertisements in even non-Hindi speaking states across the country haven't really gone unnoticed in BJP circles. Everybody is talking about it. Why should Yogi Adityanath be giving advertisements to say in a northeastern paper or a South Indian paper? But that's what has been happening. And what has also not gone unnoticed in the BJP circles is the fact that RSS has been pulling out all the stops in UP to ensure that Yogi gets a second term. So what will happen later, we will see. But in the context I am talking about is, if Yogi Adityanath gets a second term, what happens? Obviously, there will be some changes in the internal power dynamics in the BJP, and of course, you will hear a lot of talk about the succession plan in coming months and years. But that is if Yogi makes history on the 10th of March. As for Akhilesh Yadav, he has so far stayed away from the, with or without Congress debate in the opposition camp, whether to go with the Congress or without the Congress. He has been a good boy, I would say, who is happy supporting Didi in Bengal polls and welcoming her in Varanasi during UP polls. But he would still not take sides in Didi's battle against the Congress. Similarly, he would host AAP leader Sanjay Singh, but won't really help Kejriwal's party to find its feet in UP. Akhilesh Yadav would essentially play along with everyone in the opposition, showing little ambition or assertion. But on Thursday, 10th of March, if he is able to make history we are talking about, he will emerge as a major player in the non-BJP camp and arguably a decisive factor sooner than later. Yogi or Yadav, whoever wins on Thursday, India's politics will be in for a churn. That's all from me in this episode of Politically Correct. Thanks for watching.